What's up, positive bitches? How are we doing today? If you're hearing this episode, you are meant to be here, so keep listening. On that Bitches Positive podcast, sometimes we will laugh, other times, baby girl, we're gonna cry. But we will always walk away feeling our most empowered, positive bitch self. That is babe in true connection with herself. On this podcast, we unbecome who we are not so we can fully step into exactly who we came here to be. Today is the second part of a 3-part series on healing your anxious attachment. I healed my anxious attachment, and so can you, part 2. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, be sure to check that out first because that's going to lay the groundwork for today's episode. Last week, I gave you a couple of tips and tricks on how to heal your anxious attachment, but today we are talking about how to heal your attachment system in relation to your nervous system. What I said is that anxious attachment is nothing wrong with you. You are inherently worthy. However, there's dysfunction in your focus and there's dysfunction in your regulatory systems, in your nervous system. And this causes us to not feel our best. It causes us to feel, let me hear you say it, anxious. So today we're going to talk about how to balance our nervous system. And next week, which will be the third part, will be all about the energy that is below this 3D surface. Before we get into it, if you're not yet following me on Instagram at Vibin with Cece, be sure to follow me there for daily tips and tricks on how to become your most magnetic self. I am a certified life and energy coach, so if you are looking for one-on-one services to balance your anxious attachment, to shift your self-concept, to build those self-confident muscles, you can DM me on Instagram, again at Vibin with Cece, to find out more about my offerings. It is December. It's a holiday season. Don't forget to spoil yourself, celebrate yourself, give yourself the gift of healing, and book a one-on-one session with me. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. We are talking about the nervous system because a lot of anxious attachment is just overactive fight and flight. Last week, we talked about how when you have an anxious attachment, you tend towards anxiety. It's because your signal cry is always on. You're always looking for that threat. So even when things are good, you're already worried about when things are going to get bad again. Anxious attachment is an overactive nervous system, overactive in fight and flight. Now, there is this theory that I truly believe, if you can understand, can heal your anxious attachment, and it is polyvagal theory. Now, this theory, what it states is that our vagus nerve plays a central role in the central nervous system regulation that influences our social connections. That might sound like blah, 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 blah. Don't worry, I'm going to break it down for you. Essentially, what polyvagal theory states is that we have this vagus nerve, and this vagus nerve connects our brain to our gut, and there are sensory fibers that connect all of these different parts of our body, from our heart to all these other organs, and our vagus nerve will tell our heart when to start beating faster. It will tell us when to go into fight or flight, or when it's okay to relax and to rest and digest. So this vagus nerve controls whether you feel rested and relaxed, or if you feel completely stressed out. It will send signals from your brain to your body and tell your body what to do. So in tribal times, when our ancestors were hunting, and let's say our ancestors saw a tiger, our vagus nerve would pick up this information from our brain. Oh, you're seeing a tiger, and this vagus nerve would tell our body, go into fight or flight because you got to get away from this tiger, or you better hunt it. You better do something, okay? But warning signals, hello, SOS. So our vagus nerve, because it connects so much of our body, this theory, the polyvagal theory, is that our vagus nerve will either make or break our social connections and either make or break us when it comes to anxiety. If we're always perceiving threats, our body's always going to think that there's a tiger there, and it's always going to feel anxious. It's always going to want to fight or flight. However, if we're able to perceive safety, then our vagus nerve will tell our body, all is well. You can enter social engagement mode. You can have relationships. You can have fun. You can enjoy your time. So it's up to what we perceive. And then it's up to our vagus nerve to tell our whole entire body what to do. So here's the thing. If we have experienced inconsistent care growing up, we are going to think that everyone's going to inconsistently meet our needs. So our mindset is primed to perceive most things as a threat. And if it's not a threat yet, our mind will perceive that it might become a threat later. So our brain is constantly telling our body through the vagus nerve that it is not safe to exist. If our vagus nerve is constantly telling us it's not safe, we're always going to be in fight or flight. And when we're in fight or flight, everything looks like a threat. We thought we perceived threats before, forget about it. Once we're in fight or flight, our whole entire body feels threatened and it enters this survival mode. Our brows furrow. The way we perceive information is different. The way we hear is different. What we see is different. How we feel is different. Our heart is beating faster. We think we have to run out. This is why when you go to a party and you don't feel safe at that party, you might start a fight with your friend just so you can get out of there. Because subconsciously, your body's telling you it's not safe here. What is the escape plan? How do I get out of here? So this theory helps us understand that there's nothing wrong with us, but how our nervous system has been coded may be tending towards overactivation in fight or flight. If we are always in fight or flight, this means we have something called poor vagal tone. Our vagal tone is our ability of our nervous system to shift between fight and flight to rest and digest. We need to have healthy vagal tone so that we're able to shift from stress back to relaxation. Poor vagal tone results in misdirected responses and high sensitivity to perceived threats in our environment. This overactivates the body's responses and leads to reduced emotional and attentional regulation overall. Essentially, what you have with poor vagal tone is an overactive sympathetic system, which is fight or flight, and you cannot concentrate. It's really hard to have healthy relationships. You can't plan for the future, and it's hard to pay attention. You don't want to go out. You don't want to spend time with other people because you never feel safe enough to do so. So when we're so stressed out, everything essentially becomes difficult to do. Not being able to have a relationship or feeling really anxious in your relationships, it's not a personality defect. Again, there's nothing specifically wrong with you. It's poor vagal tone. Poor vagal tone meaning that it's difficult for you to go from fight and flight to rest and digest, or you're overactive in your fight and flight. If we have poor vagal tone, we're just always going to feel like the next shoe is always going to be about to drop. We're going to feel really sensitive, and we're not going to be able to respond to our environment in a way that's healthy or in a way that we feel relaxed. We're always going to be all the way here, all the way stressed out, all the way about to freak out. What I said last episode and what I want to bring up today is that a lot of our anxious attachment is just a dysregulated nervous system and dysregulated focus. Today, we're really focusing on the dysregulated nervous system. When we tend towards anxious attachment, it means, to put it in a nutshell, we have poor vagal tone because we're not able to switch between fight and flight back to rest and digest. We get eaten up by fight and flight. We're thinking, oh my God, they're going to cheat on me. They're going to abandon me. They're going to find someone better. We cannot exit fight or flight. And so we stay there. We have an overactive imagination in the negative sense and an overactive nervous system. That signal cry is on too much of the time. So what do we do if our nervous system has been this way our whole entire life, where we're constantly scanning for threats, we're constantly looking for if our needs are going to be met, we're constantly thinking the next shoe might drop? What do? What is the cure? The cure is having a toolbox of different ways for you to regulate yourself. Us who tend towards anxious attachment, we were not given tools to regulate ourselves. For me personally, growing up, anytime I felt dysregulated, I would go to my mom and she would fix it for me. I didn't learn how to regulate my emotions. If my mom wasn't there, I would just disassociate and binge eat everything in sight. I didn't learn healthy ways of regulating myself. In order to have a strong vagal tone, we need vehicles of relaxation. We need vehicles, we need tools to get us back to rest and digest. What we're lacking is ways, tools, vehicles of self-regulation. That's what this is. If we're constantly looking for a threat, we need to exit fight and flight, and we need to enter our parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. So how do we do this? I'm going to tell you everything I have done and the things that work the best. Every single time my partner would leave my house, I would immediately feel a sense of deep abandonment. Even though I consciously knew, well, he has work. Well, he has to go back home. Well, we don't live together, so obviously he's not going to stay here. Even though I consciously knew that, my brain understood it, my body didn't. Because my nervous system was so overactive, my vagal tone was poor, that I couldn't get myself to understand how to get back into a rest and digest. What I came to realize is that my inner child was screaming at me, and I was just basically telling her to shush up. I wasn't giving her the affection, the love, the care, and the attention she needed. If you feel like every time your partner isn't with you or goes to hang out with their friends or goes home or can't be there, you feel a deep sense of abandonment, it's as if the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Like, I feel really abandoned, but my partner just went to go to work. When it's like that and you're noticing that feeling is coming up time and time again, it doesn't have to do with the dude. It has to do with the dynamic you have with this dude and your nervous system. So we have to realize, okay, I have two options here. I can either blame this partner and say it's their fault that I feel abandoned. It's their fault that I feel my nervous system has poor vagal tone. It's their fault I feel really anxious. Or you can take responsibility and realize that many different partners have the ability to make you feel like this, because your inner child screaming has to do with you and has nothing to do with them. This has more to do with you than it has to do with them. It's not the dude, it's the dynamic you have with the dude. So what do? As much as you have an inner child within you, and by the way, what is your inner child? Your inner child is a part of you that felt unseen, unheard, unloved growing up. Even though we age physically, we turn 12, 13, 14, 15. You know that when someone asks you, oh, do you feel older today? You're like, no, I feel exactly the same. Yeah, we don't really emotionally age unless we do the work. Unless we're learning lessons, unless we're reading the self-help books and working on ourselves. Physically, it's really easy to age, but mentally and emotionally, there are a lot of adults that are acting like children out there because they did not do the work. So, as much as we are our inner child and that part of us still lives on within us, we also have a wise inner adult within ourselves. When I would feel completely triggered and I was in fight or flight, I would have to use my wise inner parent to regulate myself back to rest and digest my parasympathetic nervous system. So what I would do is a couple of things, but they all fall under inner child work. One thing I would do is just have a conscious conversation with myself. I would say, Cece, you are safe. It's okay. I'm here with you. I'm here with you. I'm not leaving you. If you feel like you want to cry, let it out. Let your voice be heard. So I would just talk to my inner child like I would desire an adult to talk to me if I were that child today, right here, right now. If I was that child, I would want an adult to tell me that I was safe, that I was okay, that all was working out for me. So I just told that to that part of myself that was aching inside. Because again, as much as we are that inner child, we are also that wise adult. You have both parts of you, so use both parts. Another thing I would do is write a letter to my inner child, telling my inner child that we were safe, that all was well. I would update my inner child on all the beautiful things I have created in her life, how proud she would be of her adult self. And a third thing I would do is I would ask myself, what would my inner child used to love to do, and how can I connect to her by doing that thing today? So one thing my inner child used to love to do, and I still love this today, honestly, but it's arts and crafts. I got myself these mandala coloring books, and they're beautiful, beautiful patterns, and I got myself colored pencils, and when I would feel myself getting overactive, poor vagal tone, going into fight or flight, I would say, let me go color. Let me connect with my inner child. Let me calm her down. Let me do something that brings me peace. Let me connect with my inner child, and I would just color. And I would do as many pages as I needed to do in order to come back to rest and digest. So inner child work can look different for different people. If you used to love to have picnics, have a picnic. If you used to love to color, color. If you used to love to dance, dance. Do something you used to do, and connecting to this inner child will help her feel safe and will help you get back to rest and digest. Also, like I said, you can write a letter to your inner child. This is like journaling, and remind her she's safe. Or you can just have that conscious conversation with yourself and say, I am safe. We are safe. All is okay. I'm not abandoning you. No one can abandon you if I don't abandon you, because I am the person that matters the most. And that's just the truth. We came into this world alone, and we're going to leave this world alone. We will meet other souls in other dimensions, and all will be beautiful, but we cannot be abandoned if we don't abandon ourselves. And that's the most important thing to remember. Another thing I noticed is that my nervous system would be so overactive, and it was because I would be at home or going to a friend's house or even going to dinner. Honestly, it didn't matter what I was doing. If my partner wasn't with me and he was out or on a work trip, I was so focused on what is he doing, who is he talking to, is he out to dinner, is he out, what's happening. He works at a job where he travels, not very often, but often enough that I noticed it multiple times a quarter. So I told myself, look, Cece, you have to figure this out, because you're either going to be a nervous wreck for the rest of your life, or you're going to learn a way to quell this anxiety. I chose the latter. It's almost a blessing he had to travel so much, because it gave me so much time to practice this. But what I would do is I realized I'm focusing more on his human experience than I'm focused on my own. I'm focused more on who is he talking to, what is he doing, that I'm forgetting that I exist. I have a life here. I have things to do. I have a business. I have clients. I have friends. I have family. I have activities I want to do. I want to go work out. I was simply just forgetting about my own human experience. And I call this body bouncing. My spirit would literally leave my body and I would be so focused on him and I would forget about myself. We do this when we go to the bar and we're like, oh, I hope someone buys me a drink. And then we body bounce to whoever we're talking to and we're trying to figure out, do they like me? Are they interested in me? Are they going to want to date me? That we don't even realize, wait, do I like them? Do I want to date them? Am I interested in them? We body bounce when we're more connected to that other person than we are our own human experience. So how do we stop body bouncing? By using your senses. When you use one of your 5 senses, whether it's touch, taste, what you're looking at, what you're smelling, it doesn't matter what sense you use, what you're hearing, it doesn't matter. But when you use one of your physical senses, that actually helps ground your spirit, your energy back in your own body, and it will help you regulate your nervous system. Because let's think about this. If you're more focused on what they're doing, who are they talking to, what are they doing, blah, 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 you're going to put yourself in fight or flight because you're thinking there's a threat. There could be another woman. There could be another man. There could be another something. They could be talking to someone else. You're putting yourself into fight or flight for nothing. For nothing. You're assuming the worst for nothing. Quick tip for my anxious attachment people, by the way. Instead of assuming the worst, if you are going to think about them, give your nervous system a break and assume the best. If they have not given you a reason to doubt their authenticity, assume the best for your own self. Assume the best. And I know you might be thinking, Cece, assuming the best is so hard. I know it's hard at first. Anything's hard. Assuming the worst is hard. What you do is going to be hard regardless. But if you assume the best and you practice that, the more you practice assuming the best, the easier it's going to be. Assume they're being faithful. Assume they're treating you well. Assume they're talking highly about you. And if they show you evidence that that is not true later on, you will deal with the evidence. But if there's no evidence, you have to stop freaking yourself out and you need to take responsibility. I know it's difficult because I've freaking been there, but it's possible to do and you have great power. So let's start doing that. But that's just a side note. How do we use our senses to tap back into our body? I specifically remember my partner was either out or on a business trip and I was going to my friend's house for her birthday. And I remember it was raining and I was in the Uber and I was having so much anxiety over what my partner was doing. And I told myself, Cece, you're body bouncing right now. Get back into your own body. So I decided to look at the rain, to look at the droplets that were hitting the window. There happened to be a fair going on at that time. And I remember seeing the lights of the fair. And I remember just looking at the street lights and the lights of the fair and the droplets on the window and the rain. And I remember saying, listen to the music that's playing off your phone, because I was playing music on my phone in the Uber. And I used my senses to get back into my own body. When you call your power back to you, when you call your energy back to you by grounding yourself through your own senses, it feels so much better. Because instead of you focus on what are they doing, what are they doing, what are they doing, and putting yourself into fight or flight, you're focused on what's in front of me. What day is it? What time is it? What am I doing right now? You're remembering your own human experience, which is grounding for your body. That's relaxing for your own body. Now, this is really just appreciating our own perspective, our own point of view, our own incarnation. And I feel like I've said this 1,000 billion times, but it's just worth repeating. You came here to live via your own point of view, your own perspective, your own incarnation. You came here for you. Please do not throw that away because you've learned some faulty programming in your past. It's not worth it, and it also feels terrible. So let's refocus on you, if not for that reason, for at least your inner child. Sometimes it's harder to do something for ourselves. It's harder to stand up for ourselves. It's harder to heal for ourselves. Think of your inner child. Think of her. She deserves a life where she can live and feel grounded and not anxious all the time, and she can feel liberated. She got you here. Now it's time for you to take the reins and really do this damn thing. It's time. Something with anxious attachment that you're going to want to look out for is we tend to, when our partner is giving us love and affection and joy, overlook it because we're already focused on when the other shoe is going to drop. So even when my partner was giving me validation and love and safety, I couldn't really appreciate it because I was already so worried for what possibly could happen next. So it's really important that you convey, once you understand your anxious attachment, tell your partner about your perspective. And the way you do this is you say, partner, I'm not fully evolved yet, and there's still some things I'm working through. And one of those things happens to be anxious attachment. So I just want you to know that when you're out or when you're doing certain things, I might need extra reassurance. Communication goes such a long way. I have always been so open with my partner, and so me speaking up for my needs wasn't necessarily a difficult thing for me to do. I think that's because my mom always told me the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You speaking up for your needs does not make you needy. It's you putting yourself on the pedestal. If you shut your own voice down, you're just putting yourself back into fight or flight. When you shut yourself down, you're actually pedestaling the other person because you're perceiving, what do I have to do so they like me? You're perceiving from their point of view rather than your own. Speaking up for your needs does not make you needy. It makes you bold, confident, and it makes you putting yourself on your own pedestal. It makes you authentic. That's what this is. So telling your partner, don't blame them, because I know it's easy to blame. Don't blame them. Say, look, I'm just not yet that evolved, and this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through, and I am sometimes going to need extra reassurance. So I told my partner this, and some little things that he did for me was, one time before a business trip, he wrote me like these little notes, it's going to be okay, and he put them on my water bottle, and he just wrote me a couple little notes that I could have. And I didn't know he did that until after he left. And that just made me feel so seen and validated. This is funny, but like with anxious attachment, if someone didn't speak to me, I would either assume they forgot I existed or I would forget they existed. And so I always told my partner, there are times where if we're not in contact, if we go 5 hours with no communication, I literally feel like you just forgot that I existed. And because we had some of our own traumatic moments together where what he did made me feel forgotten about, that was like a really big trigger for me. And so I told him, there are some times that I just feel like you don't know that I exist. So if we're gonna either one of us have a busy day, it would be really helpful if we could just say, hey, I'm going to be on a bunch of calls, so I won't be able to talk till later. And now we can go hours and hours and hours without speaking, but because we just put that buffer of, hey, I'm probably not going to be near my phone, by the way, I'm going to be recording or I'm going to be in meetings, we know, oh, my partner didn't forget about me, but they're just really busy. We've healed so much together, but there is a time that if he did not tell me these words, I truly believed he forgot about me. I also want to let you know that as you heal with a partner and with yourself, your anxiety is going to get less and less and less. And now my partner could do things that would have triggered me in the past and they don't trigger me at all. So I do just want to say, yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve here. It's more difficult at first to learn these new ways of being, but the more you practice them with your partner, the easier it's going to be. there are partners out there that are going to meet you halfway, that are going to show up for you and help you through your anxious attachment and help you heal through love. It's a beautiful thing. Another thing my partner does for me is every time he goes on a business trip, he brings me back a t-shirt just from the airport. It's not this expensive thing. It's just a little t-shirt. And that's another way of saying, hey, I remember you and I know you exist and I know we're in a relationship. But there was a time where I really did need that. And now it's almost like a tradition we have now. And even when I'm like, okay, I have enough t-shirts, he's like, no, it's something we do together. It's our thing. So telling your partner how you feel can make your relationship so much better. People think conversation leads to conflict, but really conversation leads to you getting closer together. Speak up for your needs, because my partner could not do any of those things to help me heal through my anxiety if I did not convey them to him. Now, something I had to do, and it was something I had to learn, was when he would bring me a shirt at first, or when he would give me love or attention, it was hard for me to receive it, because I almost thought, well, if I receive this love and affection now, when is going to be the next moment where it's not there? So I should hold off. And it's this lack mindset that there's just not going to be enough of my needs met. So I always have to be on edge. What I would do is when he did meet one of my needs, I would take a second, I would take a deep breath, and I would say, okay, how can I receive this beautiful moment of him meeting my needs and him giving me love and affection and attention? How can I receive this 1% more? Do I have just 1% more room to receive this positive energy he's giving me? It's like when we go out and someone gives us a compliment and we're like, no, I'm not beautiful. No way. I'm disgusting. I'm garbage, whatever. It's when we do that, we shut down the positive energy. Can you accept the positive energy in 1% more? Just 1%. You don't need to be completely open. Oh yeah, I'm receiving all this positive energy. Can you receive it just 1% more? Just 1% more. Allowing that 1% more in can really help you rest into your own body, rather than being so cautious of, I can't even rest and digest because I have to be in fight or flight, because when is my next need not going to be met? We don't need to do that. We don't need to be so robotic and so stiff. You're allowed to let this energy in. So it's just a little reminder. And I literally had a little post-it that just said 1% more on my wall for a really long time to remind myself every single day, can I just let it in 1% more? Now, there are also ways that you can use your body to get you regulated. Working out for me, I love to work out, yes, because I want to look a physical way. I want to be fit. That is something I really value health more than anything. And I think it takes you getting sick to value your health. And I've been sick and I never want to go back there again. I really value feeling good in my body and in my clothes. So that's definitely there. But my number one reason for working out is, oh my God, my mental health. I was just talking to my partner about this last night, because we were talking about how if we don't work out, it literally shifts how we feel about ourselves for the rest of the day. Working out, what you don't realize is it releases, first of all, endorphins and happy feeling chemicals, but it also releases the negative energy and it grounds you. When you're working out, it's hard to be in your head when you have to pick up a 20-pound weight. It's hard to be in your head when you're trying to hold a yoga pose, because you're literally having to focus, you're having to be present, you're having to focus on your own human experience. Plus, you're releasing all the negative energy and giving yourself happy feeling chemicals. Working out is a great vehicle to regulate your emotions, your nervous system, and yourself. So after he would leave, I would go take a walk, just a mile walk on the treadmill, just to relax myself back into my own body. Do not sleep on yoga, on working out, on taking a walk, even stretching. A beautiful thing about yoga is a great way to actually practice vagal toning, going from fight and flight to rest and digest. Doing interval training, again, is a great way to practice vagal toning. Why? Because you're going from your body being stressed up, picking up this heavy weight, or stressed out and doing a yoga pose to, oh, now I get to relax and have this 20-second rest, or I get to relax and now go into a child pose. You're teaching your body it's okay to go from a fight and flight to a rest and digest. So working out is a great metaphor and a great way to practice going from these different systems of our own body. The last tool that I would suggest for regulating your nervous system is a healthy distraction like stand-up comedy or a comfort show that you used to watch on Disney or Nickelodeon, something like that. Go back to things that bring you comfort, that can make you laugh. There are people who swear that they healed their whole entire body just because they would watch funny things. So laughing is a great way. It's a great medicine to regulate your emotions, regulate your body, and get yourself back on track. Okay. Positive bitches. If this podcast resonated with you, if it helps you heal, share it with someone who may also need the gift of healing this holiday season. If you know someone who deals with anxiety, send this podcast to them. You never know how much you can help them or what sentence they needed to hear that's going to help them take control back over their own life. If you liked this podcast, if you could leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, it would mean the world to me. It really helps this podcast grow. And if not for me, do it for you, because good karma. The sparkle in me, as always, honors the sparkle in you. I can't wait for this third part of this series, the energy behind it all. And I will see you in the next one. Mwah!